What determines your life? How things go for you is determined by what? Most people point to other people, or they point to their circumstances, their situation, their gender, something else that determines everything for them. So if their life doesn't go the way that they want, they're going to point to something other than themselves. Ultimately, what your life is determined by is your attitude. Attitude more than everything, because attitude is your outlook. Attitude is the way that you understand what happens to you. Attitude is the way that you interpret what people say to you. Attitude is the way that you look at things. It's your outlook on life. And the outlook that you have consistently running through your mind is ultimately going to determine your actions. It's going to determine your reactions. And for most of us, we react to the negative resistance of life by quitting, by settling, by not putting out so much effort, because we realize that the less we do and the less that we pursue a greater version of ourselves, the less we pursue our goals that we say that we want, then the less life messes with us. It's always easier to settle. And why not? Life is pretty much comfortable. If you can pay your bills, if you can eat, if you can pay off your cell phone's bills, or if you can have your television or your Netflix or whatever, you seem to be okay. You've got a car, you can get around, you got the job. Everything is okay. Why rock the boat? Why go any further than that? Because if you do go any further than that, that means you got to pay a price. That means you got to make sacrifices. That means you got to stretch yourself beyond where you are right now. But if you look out amongst you, you're probably going to hear the voice of negativity. If you look out at what other people are saying or writing online, you're going to hear that negative attitude. It seems to be the default position. How do I know that? Because every time I try to be positive, I get resistance, right? I hear from people who are offering more excuses than they do anything else. For example, the number one comment that I receive in the last 10 years that I've been running Metal Motivation on Facebook is this: CJ, it's easier said than done. The number one comment. Or I'll get different versions of it. They'll say, well, that's all good to say, but if you're dealing with this, or if you have this, or if you have that, it's not so easy. As if that matters. Why does that matter? Why does it matter to say it's easier said than done? Everything obviously is easier said than done. Everything is. So does that mean we shouldn't say it? Does that mean we shouldn't help people? Does that mean we shouldn't say what the principles are and declare them and teach them and share them to help people change their lives? No, the first person who's got their insecurities and got their bad attitude is going to speak up and say, it's easier said than done. Yes, everything is easier said than done, Sherlock, everything. But you look ridiculous dressed up in excuses, because that's what it is. Just because your situation is bad and just because things seem to be easier said than done does not mean you shouldn't work to make a difference. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try to change things. So where, oh, where is an attitude of victory? That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for those who have an attitude of victory. You know, I just did a podcast that I co-host. I co-host a few, but another one that I co-host for the Savvy Musician Academy. We were talking about this in a recent episode about discouragement. And my co-host, who's very successful online, has very successful businesses, she dealt with this, whereas just she was sharing something that she had done with a group of people that are in a particular line of business. And even though there was a whole bunch of people that said a lot of great things, all of a sudden, this whole bunch of people chimed in and they had nothing but hateful, mean things to say. You know, obviously coming out of envy and suspicion and all of this sort of stuff. Bad attitude. Don't have an attitude of victory. Well, she was just like, you know what? Why am I even doing this? What's the point? I don't have to get on here and teach people. I don't have to share them how to run a successful side business. I don't have to teach them the things that I teach them. Why do that? If people aren't going to value the value that you give, then why bother? Right? So you have so much cynicism online, and if you let that infect you, you're going to get that way yourself. So you got to look harder and harder to find people that have an attitude of victory. Why fight the positive voices? Join in. Be positive yourself. Know that there are solutions to the problems that you have. That's an attitude of victory. It's to say, it doesn't matter what I feel like every day. I'm going to put myself out there to be positive. I'm going to teach my rebellious mind, my rebellious emotions to be positive, to be an energy force, to be a source of inspiration. And the more you act that way, even though you might feel it's disingenuous, even though you might not feel it's like it's you, think of it like an actor who has to read lines. Think of it like, a performance. You are teaching yourself how to live and be and think and speak so that you can begin to conform to that standard, so that you can begin to conform to that line of thinking. By doing so, you will get an attitude of victory. And what's the purpose of that? What's the benefit of having an attitude of victory? Everything changes. Your whole approach to problems changes. Your whole approach to circumstances changes. Setbacks, hindrances, roadblocks, your outlook changes. You become somebody who first looks for answers. See, again, when I share something online, people, the first thing they offer is reasons why they can't, or reasons why it's difficult, or reasons why it takes a long time. They don't think, wow, here's an answer. I'll do it. They don't come out and say, hey, listen, no matter what it is, I'm going to figure out this problem. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to move out of this place that I don't like being in, and I'm going to get my next level. I'm going to get out of this rut, out of this plateau, and go to my next level. Why is that not the first response of most people? Why is the default setting of most people negative? I can't. It's not going to happen. Right? It only happens for a few. I'm born to lose. Wah, wah, wah. That's all it is, man. You tolerate it, and then you get mad at me for poking my finger at it. Or you want sympathy from everybody. How long does anybody have to wipe your nose and pat you on the back before it's time for you to move on? How much more sympathy do you need? Granted, there are some people that have been through some very serious and traumatic things in life. I'm not talking about them. They have been so unjustly treated. They have been so unfairly abused, and the abuse has been so significant that they deal with a level of anxiety and depression and trauma that you and I don't have any knowledge about. Guess what? I'm not really talking about them. This is Metal Motivation Daily Screams for Living Aggressively. I'm a dude on Facebook. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not dealing with that. This page is really designed for people who are stopping themselves. These are pages designed for people that haven't been through the traumas, right? They're not contending with manic depression. They're not in that position. They're just the majority of us who are living way below our present capacity, and we've justified it with negative thinking. That's who I'm talking to. Because usually when I bring this stuff up, that's the first thing people say. Well, you don't understand what I've been through. You're right. I don't understand what you've been through. And if you've been through something extremely serious, right, to the degree that you're on medication, to the degree that you see therapists or a psychiatrist, if that's where you are, you already know that somebody like me is not talking to you. You already know that somebody like me is not going to be that helpful, right? The people that I'm talking to are everybody, the other people who every day stand in their own way, every day hold themselves back. The problem is those people are putting themselves in more extreme circumstances. Somebody makes up a syndrome, they're happy to pick it up and say, that's my problem. I've got this syndrome and that disorder and this and that. And maybe you don't. Maybe the solutions are more simple than you think. And finding them begins with an attitude of victory. A change in your outlook to be a life dominator instead of someone that just accepts whatever life throws their way. It's good to be content. You can be content and comfortable in life and yet still be pursuing more. Not more for the sake of greed, not more for the sake of possessions or materialism, not more for the sake of fame or popularity, more for the sake of what you have the potential to do. You have this obligation to yourself to maximize all you are and all that you can do. That's what you owe to yourself. That's the debt you have to yourself, becoming everything that you have the possibility to become. That's the more we're looking for. But in the meantime, today, like for example, I'm not where I want to be. There's so much more I know that I can do, so much more I know that I can produce. But for now, I also strive for contentment. I'm not going to be in angst over it. I'm not going to lose sleep over it. But at the same time, I'm going to keep striving for that better thing. Keep striving to build that better self. Can you dig that? I hope you can. This is CJ, the Mental Motivator. And remember, in whatever you do, don't suck mental up.